ER, or an emergency room, is a transition between life and death. This is a place familiar to many as the battlefield of healthcare, an altar where life is preserved and taken away. The ER is not a place where only episodes of the series Grey's Anatomy take place, where doctors perform incredible rescues and patients suddenly come back to life. It is also a place where some of the most tragic and heartbreaking moments in people's lives occur. Another important aspect of ER is that it is random or, in other words, unpredictable. The ER providers are ready to handle the worst and keep their cool under the pressuring situations. But it is a place that is as horrifying and full of the weirdest happenings that has traumatized many healthcare workers, or more accurately, ER providers. Imagine the chaotic environment of an ER. The bright lights, the sound of machines that are constantly beeping obnoxiously, and the sound of doctors and nurses running from one emergency to another, and people crying of pain or grief. For many people, their visit to the emergency room is a time of great anxiety and even panic. Such patients come in with many complications and in very terrible and dangerous states. Some situations are so bad that we wouldn't even want to wish it upon our worst enemies. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we will share with you some horrifying stories from the heart of ER. Make sure to stick till the end. Number 1. It was a rather normal or moderately eventful day in the ER when a family came in late at night with an 8-year-old boy. The boy looked disoriented, and it was revealed that the boy had been at the laundromat with his grandmother, where the clothes had been in the dryer machine after a good wash. You know, when you open the dryer and the machine keeps spinning. That's what had happened when the boy opened the dryer. The boy had reached his arm into the dryer to take the clothes out, despite the machine still spinning. His small arm got caught in the spinning machine, and it literally ripped his arm out. Like a scene out of a horror movie, the boy was rushed into ER to get treated, where his arm was amputated. The entire team was horrified to observe such a gruesome sight, and one of the staff mentioned they still hesitate to put their hand in the dryer. Number 2. This story is a bit different from the others as it is told by a patient, not a doctor. I was first attacked by kidney stones, and my experience in the hospital was quite positive. I want to give special thanks to the staff who were very attentive and caring, efficient in giving medications, and courteous in dealing with me. But the second time around, I had a very different experience altogether. Since relocating, I had to go to a different hospital. The pain was unbearable, so much so that I could barely breathe, but I was left in the waiting area for 2 hours because I went at 2 a.m. during the weekdays. When I was finally admitted, I got into a rather small room that looked more like a set of dressing rooms rather than a treatment area. No doors, just curtains, enough for me, my then girlfriend, and the medical personnel. The place was packed. After another half an hour of suffering, someone came to me and offered me the oral pain relievers that I could have easily administered to myself at home. It was like they were just wasting money and not even helping out at all, and that really bothered me. When the doctor finally came in, he said that I should try to pass the stones, to see my urologist, and gave me permission to take ibuprofen as the pain arose. Not even x-ray, let alone contrast study. I was able to see my urologist 2 days later, but I was still in immense pain and this affected my work. I was an on-air talent at a radio station. When I told my urologist about the incident that happened in the ER, the doctor seemed furious. He quickly replied, "I will be back in a moment." After 15 minutes, he came back with a referral for a contrast lab for the following morning. He was angry that the ER had done so little and told me never to go there again. In his opinion, the ER's response was severely lacking in seriousness, and they were not holding themselves to proper standards. Number 3. This story comes from Reddit, where a nurse in the ER shared their weird experience in the ER. It was a relatively quiet night, around 2:30 a.m., and 2 stable patients had been sleeping. The other nurse had been using her phone to browse through social media. They see a guy walk into the ER very calmly, towards them as if he seemed normal. He was well groomed and had no cuts, bruises, or wounds that looked like they needed to be tended to, so the nurse was confused. He comes up to the nurse and smiles, trying to communicate in a very broken English, before saying, "Knife in me." "Ah, sorry." The nurse replied in confusion, not understanding the situation. After a while, the guy decided the conversation was not going anywhere and turned to show them a giant knife sticking out in his back, his shirt soaked in blood. A look of horror painted over their faces as they assessed this surprisingly calm patient and the trail of blood he had left behind him as he had walked himself into the ER. The nurse freaked out. "How are you so calm?" Wondering what to do next, the nurse rushed him into surgery, and he was all right afterwards. The man had been a tourist from the Middle East and was stabbed by drunk people as he was walking down the road. Number 4. A medical professional on Reddit recalled, "I once cared for a man who had sustained severe burns on most of his legs after attempting to stomp out a fire that had ignited his tent while camping. We treated his burns, bandaged him up, and administered IV painkillers to manage his pain. When it was time for his discharge, his father pulled up to the front entrance with their car. The patient was a tall, hefty guy, about 6'4", and he had both legs elevated on the wheelchair's adjustable leg rests. As I wheeled him out, we encountered one of those threshold strips that separate different types of flooring. Anyone who has pushed a wheelchair knows these strips can abruptly halt your momentum. As we hit the strip, the wheelchair stopped suddenly. I backed up and tried to push over it with more force. Unfortunately, instead of smoothly crossing the threshold, the chair stopped again, and the man was pitched forward onto the floor. His father, standing outside holding the car door open, watched in horror. Together, his dad and I hurried to lift him back into the wheelchair as he screamed in pain. Thankfully, the patient was still under the effects of the painkillers and reassured us that he was okay despite the fall. We managed to load him into the car, and they drove off. With a heavy heart and a deep sense of embarrassment, I wheeled the now empty chair back into the ER. As I made my way through the crowded waiting room, I could feel the eyes of every witness who had seen the entire ordeal. It was a humbling experience, reminding me of the importance of caution and the unpredictable challenges we face in the medical field. Number 5. Another story from the minds of Reddit goes as follows. It was my 4th year, and I was on duty in a quiet, rural emergency department, ED, with not much happening. Suddenly, EMS brought in a woman who had attempted suicide. There wasn't much blood, just a few splatters on her clothes, and no immediately obvious bullet wound. They began their assessment and found a single small caliber entrance wound aimed directly at her heart. Surprisingly, her vitals were stable, and the extended focused assessment with sonography for trauma, EFAST, was negative. As they continued with the secondary survey, the team discovered she had no sensation or motor function in the lower half of her body. No exit wound was found, which prompted the professionals to get a PAN scan. Radiology reported various bullet fragments scattered throughout her torso, but failed to mention the bullet lodged in her spinal cord. The bullet had narrowly missed her heart, ricocheted off a couple of ribs, fracturing them, and ultimately passed through a thoracic vertebra, lodging itself in her spinal cord. Now, the team had to deliver the grim news to the patient. She would likely never walk again and needed to be transferred to a higher-level trauma center for neurosurgery. To their astonishment, the woman was ecstatic. She revealed that her suicide attempt stemmed from unbearable pain due to severe arthritis in her hips and knees. Ironically, she felt better than she had in years, as the shooting had inadvertently relieved her chronic pain. This was a great end to such a horrible story, and it does not take away the horrors and trauma faced by those involved. The horrors of the ER are multifaceted, affecting both those who seek care and those who provide it. By acknowledging and addressing these challenges, we can work towards creating a more humane and effective emergency medical system. The ER, with all its chaos and intensity, remains a crucial part of our healthcare landscape, and by understanding its horrors, we can better appreciate the resilience and dedication of those who navigate its corridors every day. Medical professionals working in the ER face their own set of horrors. The relentless pressure to make life or death decisions, the exposure to traumatic injuries, and the need to manage a constant stream of critical cases take a significant toll on their mental and emotional well-being. Burnout, PTSD, and other psychological issues are common among ER staff, underscoring the human cost of working in such an intense setting. All these stories highlight a different issue or situation, some unavoidable, some showing underlying issues about the hospital's lack of attention towards healthcare. Nonetheless, the details of every case are harrowing, and there's definitely more out there that are even more disturbing or horrifying, either from patients or medical professionals. Have a story from the heart of ER that you would like to share with us? Comment down below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.